Hey, Mquin here with my dog Luna and welcome back to our channel. Patch 2.2 is just around the corner and Tartaglia's banner is set for another rerun. But before you pull, let's break down and review Childe's talents. In this video, we will talk about Riptide and the related effects, how Riptide is related to his talents, and how his constellations work. We will also look into the recommended weapons and the artifacts for the 11th of the Fatui Harbingers. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, we are announcing in this video the first two winners of our giveaway. Let's get started. Riptide is the unique status that Childe's talents revolve around with. Riptide can be applied by simply hitting an opponent with fully charged attack like this. When this symbol is attached to an opponent, it means that they are already affected by Riptide. Riptide is just a mere status, and what happens to it depends on Childe's next action. When Childe hits opponents that are affected by Riptide with a fully charged attack, it deals 3 additional consecutive AoE hydro damage, each of which is more or less 20% of Childe's attack. This is called the Riptide Flash. At level 7 normal attack, the Riptide Flash deals 18.6% per hit. When an opponent affected by Riptide is defeated, it will create a Hydro Burst that will inflict Riptide status on the nearby enemies. This is called the Riptide Burst. At level 7 normal attack, the Riptide Burst damage is at 93%. The next two Riptide related effects can be understood better by discussing Childe's talents. Childe's elemental skill is called Foul Legacy Raging Tide. When used, Childe will deal hydro damage to surrounding opponents and enter the melee stance. In this stance, Childe's normal and charged attacks all deal hydro damage and cannot be overridden by any elements. The melee stance can last up to 30 seconds, but you may preemptively end the melee stance by tapping his elemental skill again or by switching to another party member. The cooldown of Raging Tide depends on how long Childe stayed in melee stance. The longer you stay in this stance, the longer the cooldown will be. When you let Childe's melee stance expire on its own, the cooldown will be even longer. The maximum cooldown is 45 seconds, and that's a long time, especially if you are in the Spiral Abyss where every second counts. And that is why using Childe needs discipline, and you really have to get used to his kit to maximize his potential. To emphasize, all Childe's basic attacks done while in melee stance are considered normal attack. That is why Rust and the 4-piece set of Heart of Depth artifact, both of which boost normal attack, work very well with Childe. It's also worth noting that after 4th Ascension, Childe's second passive called Sword of Torrent will be unlocked. This allows Childe to inflict more Riptide statuses to opponents by dealing crit hits while on melee stance, and that is why it is important for Childe to have huge crit rate. And fun fact, Childe cannot do plunging attack while in melee stance. Going back to our Riptide discussion, when opponents affected by Riptide are hit with normal or charged attacks while in melee stance, it unleashes an effect called Riptide Slash that deals AoE hydro damage. At level 8 elemental skill, Riptide Slash damage is at 103%. It is considered an elemental skill damage, so the effects of Rust and the 4-piece Heart of Depth won't apply with Riptide Slash. Childe's elemental burst called Havoc Obliteration is more straightforward than his elemental skill. When used at any of his stances, it will cause AoE hydro damage to the surrounding opponents. When at range stance, it will apply Riptide to opponents. When at melee stance, it will trigger Riptide Blast. Opponents that are affected by Riptide and hit by Childe's elemental burst while on melee stance will trigger an AoE hydro damage explosion. This is called the Riptide Blast and considered to be an elemental burst damage. Once Riptide Blast is triggered, the Riptide status on that enemy will be cleared. Childe's first Constellation helps with managing the cooldown of his elemental skill by reducing it by 20%. However, even with C1, the maximum cooldown will still be high at 36 seconds, so discipline and getting used to his talents are still recommended. Childe's second Constellation is also straightforward. When opponents affected by Riptide are defeated, Childe regenerates elemental energy. The fourth Constellation makes his elemental skill really shine. While attacking in a melee stance, Riptide Slash is triggered every 4 seconds. On the other hand, when in range stance, it triggers Riptide Flash instead. And take note that the Riptide Flashes and Riptide Slashes that are triggered through this Constellation are calculated independently from the Riptide Flashes and Slashes that are triggered through usual procs. Lastly, Childe's 6th Constellation resets the cooldown of his elemental skill when his elemental burst is used while in melee stance. At this point, Childe is an unstoppable monster. As mentioned earlier, one of the possible 4-star weapons that Childe may use is Rust. Since most of his damage will come from his normal attack while in melee stance, Rust's ability is a big boost at 80% increased normal attack damage at Refinement 5. However, when using Rust, the crit rate to crit damage ratio will be fully dependent on his artifact's substats. The Viridescent Hunt is also a decent option. Its special ability, Verdant Wind, helps Childe to group small enemies and deal AoE damage to them. Also, since Viridescent Hunt's secondary stat is crit rate, it is easier to achieve a good crit ratio. For 5-star weapons, both Skyward Harp and Thundering Pulse are excellent options, but I guess that the new bow that will be released in patch 2.2 called Polar Star will be his best in slot based on the description of its ability. So far, the best artifact for Childe is the 4-piece Heart of Depth set, which seems to be created for him, although arguably can be used by other characters as well. Stats will be attack percent, hydro damage bonus, and crit damage or crit rate. For the substat, the priority will be crit damage and crit rate, followed by attack percent, and then flat attack or energy recharge. Also mentioned earlier, it's best for Childe to have a high crit rate because of his second passive, but still have in mind the crit rate and crit damage 1:2 ratio while doing so. The most popular team for Childe right now is the Fireworks comp, which involves Fischl and Beidou for easier electro charge proc. Beidou can be your sub DPS while Childe's skill is in cooldown, and Fischl's second passive and C6 ability, though not required, will allow her to be a great off-field damage dealer. You may use Bennett to boost Childe's burst or Xingqiu as an energy battery. Childe can also be a part of a Breezy comp, partying with Zhongyun, Kea, and Rosaria, or reverse, Fate with Xiangling, Sucrose, and Bennett. What do you think of Childe's kit? Would you pull for him or his Constellations? Let me know in the comments. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss when I upload new ones. Here are the first 2 winners of our Blessing of the Welkin Moon giveaway. Congratulations! 3 more subscribers will win Blessing of the Welkin Moon, and 1 subscriber will win Genesis Crystal Package. More winners will be announced on or before October 23, 2021. Ad Astra Abyssosque.